Have you ever felt like the closer you try to get to someone, the faster they pull away? You open up, you're vulnerable, you try to show them you care, and instead of moving closer, they emotionally retreat. And maybe, just maybe, you've started blaming yourself for it. Am I too much? Too needy? Should I just be more chill? If you've ever been in a connection with someone who seems allergic to intimacy, you're not alone. What you're experiencing isn't random. You're likely caught in an avoidant attachment loop. And here's what nobody tells you: avoidants don't run because you care too much. They run because connection starts to feel unsafe. Until you do this one thing, something most people never think to try. When you understand this shift, it changes everything. You stop chasing. You stop walking on eggshells. You stop being the one holding it all together, and instead, you start showing up in a way that commands respect, emotional safety, and clarity, without losing your heart in the process. I'm Jim Rohn, and in this video, I'm going to break down the psychological pattern behind why avoidants keep running, and the one simple, powerful move you can make that stops the cycle cold. This isn't about playing games. It's about regaining your emotional power, so you stop giving it away to someone who doesn't know what to do with it. So if you're tired of mixed signals, emotional shutdowns, and always being the one who cares more, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel is your space for grounded relationship clarity, attachment healing, and the tools you need to stop chasing and start choosing yourself again. Stick around, because once you understand what actually gets an avoidant to stop running, you'll never approach connection the same way again. Before I walk you through the shift that truly changes everything with an avoidant partner, there's something you need to understand, because if you miss this, you'll keep repeating the same painful loop. The more emotionally reactive you become, the more it confirms to them that they need to pull away. I know that sounds completely backwards. After all, in most healthy relationships, showing emotion, wanting to resolve conflict, leaning in with care, those are signs of investment, right? They are how we express love, how we work through hard moments. But in the avoidant mindset, it's read very differently. To them, your emotional reaction feels like pressure, like intensity, like closeness, coming in faster than they're ready for. And instead of being received as care, your efforts often trigger their defense system, making them feel like they're losing autonomy or being cornered into emotional vulnerability they haven't learned to handle. So they do what they've always done. They run, shut down, or distance themselves. And if you're someone who values connection, that can feel so confusing and hurtful. You're not doing anything wrong. You're trying to repair, trying to get through to them, trying to keep the relationship from falling apart. But when you're dealing with someone with avoidant tendencies, reacting emotionally, even with good intentions, can actually deepen the gap. That's why the most powerful thing you can do, as counterintuitive as it feels, is to stop chasing, not to punish, not to play games, but to step out of the cycle where you keep offering more and they keep pulling further away. Because that's the loop that keeps you stuck. And it's only when you remove the emotional urgency, when you stop making their retreat something you need to fix, that the dynamic begins to shift. Your calm detachment isn't cold, it's clarity. And that's what they've never had to face until now. If you're honest with yourself, you probably already know the pattern. Every time your avoidant partner pulls away, you've been the one to reach out. You send the text. You try to make sense of the distance. You want resolution, because deep down you understand that if you don't take that first step, nothing is going to happen. And so, time after time, you've carried the emotional responsibility of reconnecting, only to either get silence, vague responses, or be met with more distance. It becomes a cycle. You initiate, they react, or don't, and you end up right back where you started, confused, hurt, and emotionally exhausted. It's not just frustrating, it's draining. And while it takes real heart to keep trying to stay committed, to believe in the potential of the relationship, the truth is, this pattern can't keep going if you want peace. Because the more you chase, the more they retreat. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because avoidants are wired to protect their independence and emotional space at all costs. And oddly enough, the moment you stop doing what you've always done, when you stop reaching, stop fixing, stop reacting, that's when everything begins to shift. You've probably been the emotional anchor for so long that the idea of not doing anything feels foreign, but ironically, that's what starts to feel safe to them. When you're not pushing, they don't feel the need to escape, and suddenly, for the first time, they might actually feel drawn toward you. That's the power of calm detachment. Not coldness, not indifference, but simply refusing to spin the same emotional wheel. When they sense that your peace no longer depends on their behavior, something clicks. They realize the emotional script has changed. You're no longer chasing, and now the silence doesn't serve them, it confronts them. And that calm, grounded response? That's what becomes their wake-up call. Not a breakdown, not a dramatic confrontation, just your quiet decision to hold your center and no longer play the same role in their pattern. When you calmly step back and let them do what they feel they need to do, without chasing, without over-explaining, without trying to win them back or fix things, you're not giving up. In fact, what you're doing is something far more powerful. You're choosing emotional self-respect. You're choosing your peace over your pattern. And while that decision might ache at first, while it may stir some fear deep down, because yes, you still care, it's a sign of true growth. A part of you may still be afraid of losing them, still holding out hope that this time will be different, that if you just hang on a little longer, they'll finally come around. But when you hold the line, even when it's uncomfortable, you send a message that's crystal clear. I will no longer carry this relationship alone. That message changes everything. Because if you're honest, you've probably been the one doing the emotional heavy lifting for far too long. You've been the one making room, being patient, shrinking your needs, bending to avoid tension, and holding on tightly to the hope that love and loyalty would be enough to pull them closer. You've wanted connection. You've wanted to break through. You've seen glimpses of the good and thought, if I just keep showing up, maybe they'll stop running. But the truth is, they never stopped using distance as a shield. And no matter how open-hearted you were, their avoidance kept creating a gap between you. A gap you couldn't close alone. That's why stepping back is so important. Because when you finally stop chasing, when you start honoring the space they seem to need, you're not abandoning the relationship. You're removing yourself from a dynamic that has never been equal. You're no longer pouring your energy into someone who won't meet you halfway. And when you do that, something subtle but incredibly powerful happens. Accountability shows up. Suddenly, they no longer have anyone to blame for feeling smothered or pressured. You're not flooding them with emotion. You're not demanding closeness. You're not trying to talk through things they're not willing to face. You're simply responding with calm clarity. I'm not doing this anymore. And for someone with avoidant tendencies, that can be incredibly disorienting. Because you've stepped out of the role they were used to, one where your effort allowed them to stay emotionally passive. You were the one who pursued, soothed, repaired, and showed up again and again. Now, you're just not. And in the absence of that familiar pattern, they're left with themselves. No noise, no distraction, just the quiet weight of their own behavior. What they see in that silence is not about you. It's about the emotional walls they keep building. And without the usual friction to distract them, they're forced to confront the truth. Their avoidance didn't just affect the relationship, it defined it. That realization can shake the ground beneath them. Because now, they're no longer in control of the emotional tone. The script they've always relied on, pull away, wait for you to reach out, then re-enter when it feels safe, is no longer working. You're not reacting, you're not chasing, you're not rescuing. You've pulled your energy back, and now they have to ask themselves, what happens if I keep avoiding? What am I really doing here? And what might I lose if I don't change? These are the questions that matter. And they don't come up when you're still holding the dynamic together. They come when you stop trying to be responsible for their emotional availability. That's when the mirror goes up. That's when the truth becomes inescapable. And while you can't control how they'll respond to that truth, what you can control is how you show up for yourself in the meantime. Staying calm, grounded, and clear is not about punishing them. It's about choosing you. It's about choosing emotional balance over chaos. It's about choosing truth over fantasy. Because love should never require you to chase someone who keeps running from the very thing they claim to want. When you stop running after someone who avoids connection, you give both of you the space to see what's real. And from that space, something much more honest can begin to unfold, even if it's just your own healing. This is the point where everything starts to shift, not just in the dynamic with your avoidant ex, but within you. For the first time, they're the ones who feel uncertain. They're no longer sure how to navigate this connection because the script they've always relied on, the one where they pull away and you come closer, is no longer working. And that's disorienting for someone who's spent most of their relational life depending on distance as a way to feel safe. See, when someone has an avoidant attachment style, they've learned to associate closeness with emotional danger. Vulnerability feels risky. Needing someone feels weak. So they manage that fear by keeping you at arm's length. And as long as you're the one doing all the emotional work, they never have to face what it's costing them. But now you've stepped out of the loop. You're not chasing, you're not reaching out after every withdrawal. You're no longer bending over backward to prove that you're safe enough to love. And in that stillness, in that powerful absence, the balance shifts. Suddenly, they're not feeling protected, they're feeling exposed. Because without your emotional pursuit to distract them or cushion the effects of their avoidance, they're left with nothing but their own pattern. And for the first time, they may actually have to sit with the discomfort of those patterns. They may start to feel anxious, even a little panicked, not necessarily because they've had a breakthrough, but because they've lost control of how things used to operate. You were always the stabilizer, the safe one, the emotionally available one. Now, without that steady presence, they're thrown off. They begin to wonder, wait, are they actually done with me? And that question, that unsettled feeling, it starts to bring them back toward you. This is often when you see them initiate again, maybe with a simple text, a subtle check-in, a breadcrumb of interest, and it can be so tempting to see that as progress. After all, you've probably waited for signs like this for a long time. It's normal to feel a spark of hope when someone who's kept their distance finally leans in. But here's where you need to pause and get radically honest with yourself. Are they reaching out because they're truly ready to show up? Or are they reaching out because they feel like they're losing their grip on your energy? There's a big difference between emotional growth and emotional discomfort. One leads to lasting change. The other usually just leads to another loop. Avoidants don't always come back because they've realized how much they hurt you. Sometimes they come back because they're unsettled by the quiet. They miss the comfort of your presence. Not necessarily you in your fullness, but the role you played, the reassurance, the effort, the safety net. And if you're not careful, if you rush back in too quickly, you'll end up right where you started, giving more than you get, trying to hold something together while they drift in and out on their terms. That's not partnership. That's self-abandonment disguised as hope. So this is your moment to stay grounded. Observe, not just what they say, but what they do. Are they consistently showing up? Are they initiating real conversations? Are they demonstrating emotional openness or just testing the waters to see if you'll bite? Your nervous system has been through enough. You don't owe anyone instant access to your heart just because they finally noticed your absence. You've done the work to stop chasing. Now do the work to stay anchored. And if they're serious, if they're genuinely ready to shift, you'll know. It won't feel like a guessing game. It won't require decoding mixed signals. It will feel steady, calm, mutual, because real emotional maturity doesn't push and pull. It doesn't punish closeness. It leans in, it stays, and it values the space you've given, not as a weapon, but as an invitation to meet you in a new way. So here's what I want you to take with you. Just because someone reappears doesn't mean they're ready. Just because they miss you doesn't mean they've changed. Your role isn't to get swept back up in their emotional chaos. Your role is to stay rooted in your clarity and trust that the right person won't be intimidated by your growth. They'll rise to meet it. And if they can't, that's not your failure. That's your confirmation. You're not hard to love. You're just finally unavailable to the kind of love that drains you. So if there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's this. Stepping back isn't weakness. It's not cold. It's not giving up. It's actually the most loving thing you can do for yourself. Because when you stop chasing someone who avoids connection, you stop abandoning yourself to keep the illusion of closeness alive. You start honoring your emotional needs, your energy, your boundaries, and that changes everything. It sends a message that says, I know my worth. I'm no longer available for one-sided relationships. I'm done trying to prove that I'm enough. And in that shift, you create space not just for them to face their own patterns, but for you to come back home to yourself. You deserve a relationship that doesn't make you beg for clarity or feel like you're constantly walking on emotional eggshells. You deserve a love that feels safe, mutual, and steady, not one that leaves you guessing. And sometimes, in order to create space for that kind of love, you have to let go of what was never fully choosing you in the first place. Thank you so much for watching. If this message spoke to you, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know, what part of this message hit home? What have you learned about yourself as you've stepped away from the chasing dynamic? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos on healing, emotional clarity, and building the kind of relationships that actually nourish you. This space is for you, for your growth, your voice, and your journey back to the kind of connection that starts within. You've done enough chasing. It's time to receive. And it starts by choosing you.